started with a lie. Not the kind you tell to hurt someone, but the kind you tell to protect your heart. The kind that sounds harmless until it starts to feel like the truth. Levi once told me, with that smirk that could stop time, "I'd never date a guy like you, Oliver." And I laughed, pretending it didn't sting, pretending that being a guy like me, quiet, sentimental, maybe too earnest for my own good, was something to be ashamed of. But that night, our graduation night, everything we both tried to hide came undone. The campus was alive with noise, fireworks bursting in the sky, cheers echoing across the field, music spilling out from the gym where everyone danced like the world would end tomorrow. I stood by the edge of the football bleachers, my diploma clutched too tightly in one hand, watching the celebration from a distance. That was me, always on the outside looking in. Then Levi found me. He walked up with that easy confidence he always carried, hands shoved into his pockets, eyes bright even in the dim light. His tie hung loose around his neck, and for once he looked a little lost. "Skipping the party?" he asked. "I don't do well in crowds," I said, keeping my eyes on the fireworks. He chuckled softly. "You mean you don't do well around me?" I turned then, and for a heartbeat our eyes locked, and it felt like every memory of the last 4 years rushed back all at once. The teasing, the late-night study sessions, the way he always sat a little too close, the way I kept pretending I didn't notice. Levi had always been the golden boy, captain of the soccer team, effortlessly charming, the kind of guy everyone wanted to be or be with. And me? I was the quiet one with the camera, capturing moments I was too shy to be part of. We were never supposed to fit, but somehow, in every photo I took, he always found his way into the frame. "Come with me," Levi said suddenly, his tone different, softer, almost pleading. Before I could answer, he grabbed my hand. His touch was warm, steady, familiar in a way that felt dangerous. He led me away from the noise, through the back courtyard, up the stairs to the rooftop above the library, our secret place. We used to come here during finals week to watch the city lights when we were too tired to study. When we reached the top, the wind hit us hard, and Levi laughed. "God, I'm going to miss this view." "You mean the school or the city?" I asked. He looked at me then, really looked, and said, "Both." There was something in his voice I hadn't heard before, something honest, something trembling. He pulled out 2 small bottles of champagne from his jacket and handed me one. "To us," he said, raising his bottle. "To what we survived," I replied. Our bottles clinked softly. We drank in silence for a while, the stars above us and the hum of the city below. Then Levi said, "Do you ever wonder what it would have been like if things were different?" "Different how?" "If I wasn't so afraid," he murmured. I froze. "Afraid of what?" He didn't answer right away. His hand brushed mine. Lightly, but enough to make my chest tighten. "You," he said finally. "I was afraid of you." The words hung in the air between us, heavy, dangerous. I tried to laugh it off, but my voice cracked. "You're kidding." He shook his head. "You make me feel things I don't understand, Oliver. And I hate not being in control." My heart was pounding. "Levi." He took a step closer. The wind carried the faint scent of his cologne, familiar and disarming. His eyes searched mine, desperate, unsure. "I said I'd never date a guy like you," he whispered, "because I thought saying it out loud would make the feelings go away." "And did it?" I asked. He smiled sadly. "No, it just made me miserable." For a long moment we stood there, 2 boys on the edge of adulthood, caught between who we were and who we were afraid to be. Then Levi reached out and cupped the side of my face. His thumb brushed my cheekbone, trembling slightly. "Tell me to stop," he said. I didn't. His lips met mine, hesitant at first, then certain, then desperate. The fireworks from the field flared again, painting the sky with color as the world blurred around us. It was soft, clumsy, perfect. When we finally pulled apart, he was laughing through his tears. God, I'm such an idiot. Yeah, I said, smiling. But you're my idiot now. We sat there until the first light of morning crept across the horizon. He leaned against me, half asleep, and I realized this, whatever it was, wasn't about labels or promises. It was about truth. About two people finally being honest with themselves after years of pretending. Graduation was supposed to be an ending, but for us, it was the beginning of something neither of us saw coming. Later, when the sun fully rose, Levi turned to me and said, "I don't know what comes next, but I don't want to keep lying." I nodded, feeling the weight of every unsaid word between us. "Then don't," I whispered. "Not anymore." He smiled, small, shy, real. And in that moment, I knew that no matter where life took us, we'd both remember this rooftop, this night, this truth we finally let in. That night didn't change the world, but it changed us. And sometimes that's enough. Levi didn't let go of my hand when we climbed back down the rooftop stairs. I noticed it first, the way his fingers curled around mine, as if he'd been holding on for years and only now realized he didn't want to stop. The campus was almost empty. The fireworks were gone. The music had faded. Only the soft hum of early morning surrounded us. A thin mist settled over the lawns, catching the sunlight like something holy. We walked slowly, not speaking, our shadows stretching long across the pavement. I kept waiting for him to drop my hand, to laugh, to say it was the champagne, the moment, the night. But he didn't. He held on tighter. "Are you okay?" I finally asked. "Better than I've been in a long time," he said, surprising me. "It feels like I can breathe for the first time." I didn't expect that. Levi, who always looked like he owned the world, confessing that he'd been suffocating in silence, that hit deeper than anything else he'd said. We reached the small garden behind the dorms, a place usually crowded with students cramming for finals. Now it was quiet except for the rustle of leaves. Levi guided me toward the bench where we used to eat takeout during exam week. He didn't sit right away. Instead, he moved in front of me, blocking the rising sun, and looked at me with a seriousness I'd rarely seen from him. "I need to tell you something," he said. I braced myself. "I was supposed to leave for the internship today. Chicago. It starts next week." I nodded. I'd known about that since February. Everyone did. It was a big deal, a competitive program. Levi had worked for months to get it. "I turned it down," he continued. "What?" I blinked. "Why would you do that?" "Because I couldn't keep pretending," he said. "Not there. Not anywhere." I shook my head. "Levi, that internship was your dream." "No," he said softly. "You were." My breath caught. He wasn't exaggerating. He wasn't joking. I saw it in his eyes, raw, terrified honesty. "I thought I needed that internship to become who I was supposed to be," he said. "But every step I took toward it, I felt further from myself. And further from you. Levi, I'm tired of hiding," he whispered. "I'm tired of caring so much about what everyone thinks that I never stop to ask what I want." "And what do you want?" I asked, even though my pulse was racing like I already knew. He closed the distance between us until our foreheads touched. "You," he said. "I want you." The wind picked up, brushing his hair across his forehead. I wanted to memorize everything. The way the light hit his face, the tremble in his voice, the truth in his eyes. But I was scared. Not of him, of wanting this too much. Of losing it the moment I believed in it. So I said the only thing I could. "Then don't make promises you can't keep." He pulled back just enough to look at me. "I'm not promising forever," he said. "I'm promising today, and tomorrow, and as many days as it takes for me to figure the rest out." The honesty of that imperfect, human, brave, felt more real than any vow. We finally sat down on the bench. He rested his head on my shoulder, and for a while we just watched the morning unfold. Students trickled past, some still wearing their graduation gowns, others dragging suitcases. Nobody paid us any attention. It was strangely comforting, being invisible in a world that was suddenly too big and too bright. After a long stretch of quiet, Levi asked, "Were you ever going to tell me how you felt?" I let out a small, humorless laugh. "No, I didn't want to ruin what we had." "And what did we have?" he asked, voice low. "A friendship," I said. "A pretty great one." He lifted his head. "Oliver, friendships don't hurt like that when you walk away. They don't feel like this." He placed his hand over my chest, right where my heart was beating too fast. Couldn't deny it. "Not anymore." "You know," he said, leaning back a little, "I used to get jealous." That startled me. "Of what?" "Anyone who got your attention," he said, shrugging. "Guys, girls, even your camera." "My camera?" "You look at everything with this softness," he said, "like you're afraid to miss the beauty in people." I hated how badly I wanted you to look at me that way. I swallowed hard. "Levi, you were the reason I started photography." He froze. "What?" "You kept drifting into the background of my life," I said. "I was afraid if I didn't take pictures, I'd forget the way you smiled at 2 a.m. when we were too tired to think. Or the way you looked on game days when you pretended not to be nervous. Or the way the sun hit your hair in the mornings. I didn't want to lose that." He stared at me, speechless, his expression breaking open in the most heartbreakingly beautiful way, like someone finally realizing they were loved more deeply than they ever understood. "God," he whispered, "I don't deserve you." "Probably not," I teased, "but I'm giving you a chance anyway." He laughed, and the sound lit up the whole morning. Then he grew serious again. "Can I give you something?" I nodded. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper, worn and soft at the edges. "What is it?" "Open it." I unfolded it carefully. It was a picture printed on glossy photo paper. Picture I didn't know he had. It was of me. Taken during our first year. I was sitting on the library steps, laughing at something he'd said. My eyes were closed, my hair was messy, and I looked happy. "You kept this?" I asked. "For 4 years," he said. "It was the first time I realized I might be in trouble." "In trouble?" He nodded. "Because I didn't think it was possible to fall for someone so quietly, so completely, and so inevitably." My heartbeat stuttered. "Levi." He took the photo from my hands and slid it gently into my jacket pocket. "Keep it," he said. "I think it belongs with you now." And sitting there, with the morning sun warming our backs and the future finally beginning to look like something worth stepping into, I knew this wasn't the end of the story, not even close. It was the start of a truth we were both finally brave enough to choose. The following week moved like a dream and a storm at once. Graduation ended, people packed up, said goodbyes that sounded lighter than they felt. Every hallway, every classroom smelled like endings, but with Levi, it felt like beginnings. We spent most of those days in small, ordinary moments that suddenly meant everything. Coffee runs that turned into confessions. Walks through the empty quad where he'd toss his arm around me like it had always belonged there. Laughter echoing in spaces that would soon forget our names. And yet, beneath the peace of it all, there was something uncertain, something unspoken that neither of us dared to name. Because love, when it's new and fragile, feels like walking a tightrope between bliss and fear. On the third day after graduation, Levi showed up outside my apartment with his car packed. "Road trip," he announced, grinning like a kid. "To where?" I asked, startled. He shrugged. "Wherever the road takes us. No plans, no rules, just time, before real life starts chasing us again." I hesitated for a heartbeat, then smiled. "You're insane." "Maybe," he said, "but I'm your kind of insane." And just like that, we were off, windows down, the summer air rushing in, music blasting through the speakers. The sun was warm, the highway endless, and for the first time, neither of us had to pretend. He sang badly to old pop songs, making up lyrics, trying to make me laugh. I took pictures of the road, the sky, his hand resting on the gear shift, the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled. Somewhere between miles, he looked over and said, "You know, I used to plan every step of my life, but lately, I think plans are overrated. Because they never work?" I teased. He smirked. "Because sometimes the best things happen when you stop trying to control them." I didn't say it out loud, but I knew exactly what he meant. We stopped at a small coastal town by evening. The ocean stretched endlessly before us, the waves whispering like secrets. We walked barefoot along the shore, the sand cool beneath our feet. Levi bent down, picked up a smooth rock, and skipped it across the water. "3 skips," he said proudly. "4, I corrected. He grinned. "You weren't supposed to count." "I always count," I said. He turned toward me then, his expression softening. "Yeah, you do." Something about the way he said it made my chest ache. We sat on a piece of driftwood, watching the sunset bleed orange and pink across the sky. The sound of the waves filled the silence between us. Then he said, almost too quietly, "My dad called." I glanced at him, and he asked if I was still taking the Chicago offer. I waited. "I told him no," Levi said. "He didn't take it well." I wasn't surprised. His father was the kind of man who believed emotions were weakness, that success was measured in titles and money. I'd seen the way Levi's smile tightened every time his dad came up. "What did you tell him?" I asked. "The truth," Levi said. "That I didn't want to live someone else's version of me anymore." I exhaled slowly. "That's brave." He chuckled, but it sounded hollow. "He didn't think so." I reached over and took his hand, squeezing gently. "You don't have to prove anything to him," I said. "You just have to be happy." He looked at me for a long moment, eyes shimmering in the fading light. "I didn't know what happy felt like until this," he said. "Until you." The words hit like a wave, powerful, unstoppable, real. He leaned in then, kissing me with a tenderness that felt like the world had gone still just to make space for it. The ocean roared behind us, the wind caught in our hair, and everything else disappeared. When we broke apart, he rested his forehead against mine. "You know this won't be easy," he whispered. "I don't need easy," I said. "I just need true." He smiled at that, a quiet, grateful kind of smile. We found a small motel that night, the kind with flickering neon signs and cheap floral curtains. Levi fell asleep first, one arm draped lazily across my waist. His breathing evened out, calm and steady. I lay awake for a while, listening to the sound of the ocean beyond the thin walls, thinking about how strange life could be, how love sometimes bloomed in the most unexpected places. The boy who once said he'd never date a guy like me was now sleeping beside me, and for the first time I didn't doubt it. I reached over, brushing a strand of hair from his forehead, and whispered, "You proved yourself wrong, Levi." He stirred but didn't wake. And in that fragile moment, I realized the most powerful thing in love isn't the confession or the kiss. It's the choice. The quiet decision to stay even when it's hard. The next morning, the sunlight poured through the thin curtains, painting everything gold. Levi woke up smiling. We survived the night in a horror movie motel, he joked. Barely, I said, laughing. The air conditioner sounded like a dying robot. He grinned, stretching. Breakfast. We ended up at a diner by the pier, the kind that smelled like coffee and pancakes and old memories. The waitress called everyone sweetheart. Levi ordered enough food for 3 people, insisting we'd earned it after an emotionally exhausting week. When she left, he grew quiet again. Do you ever think about what happens next? He asked. Every second, I admitted. And I think, I said slowly, that maybe love isn't about knowing where it's going. Maybe it's just choosing to keep showing up for it. He nodded, as if the words settled something in him. Then, unexpectedly, he reached across the table and took my hand. Right there, in plain sight where anyone could see. My breath hitched. Levi, I'm done hiding, he said firmly. If anyone asks, they'll know. You're it for me. Something inside me cracked open. That old, scared part of me that had spent years believing love like this wasn't meant for people like us. But there it was, real and unashamed, sitting across from me in a diner by the sea. After breakfast, we drove again, this time in silence. Not the heavy kind, but the easy kind that comes from knowing you don't need words anymore. The road ahead was long, uncertain, but I felt no fear. Because he was next to me. Because for the first time, the future felt like something we'd build together, not something we had to survive alone. And as the miles rolled by, I looked at him, sunlight catching in his hair, wind tugging at his shirt, and thought, he said he'd never date a guy like me. But love, as it turns out, doesn't listen to declarations. It listens to truth. And graduation night was only the beginning of ours. The days turned into weeks, and the road became our teacher. We traveled through small towns and open fields, stopping wherever beauty found us. And somehow it always did. Sometimes in the laughter of strangers, sometimes in the quiet moments between songs, and often in the way Levi would look at me when he thought I wasn't paying attention. We didn't talk about the future much. We didn't need to. Every morning was enough. Every night was its own promise. Still, I could feel something shifting inside him, a weight, a worry. One evening, as we sat by a lake watching the reflections ripple across the water, I finally said, "You've been quiet lately." He took a breath. "My mom called." I waited. "She wants me to come home for a bit," he said. "To talk." I understood what that meant. His father, the questions, the disappointment waiting behind polite words. "Are you going?" I asked. He looked at me with uncertainty flickering behind his eyes. "I don't know. I want to, but I'm afraid that once I go back, I'll lose the courage I found out here." I reached over, placing my hand on top of his. "Then don't go back as who you were. Go back as who you are now." He smiled faintly, his eyes softening. "And who am I now?" "The bravest person I know," I said. He exhaled shakily, and in that sound, I heard the release of years of pretending. A few days later, we returned to the city. Felt different this time. Smaller, quieter, like it no longer owned us. Levi dropped me off at my apartment, the same place where everything between us had begun to shift. He didn't turn off the engine right away. "I'll call you," he said, but it sounded like a promise and a question all at once. "You'd better," I said. He smiled, but there was something heavy behind it. He leaned over, kissed my forehead, and whispered, "I'll come back soon." I wanted to believe him. And I did until the silence stretched. Days passed, then a week, then 2. No calls, no texts, just the echo of his laughter in my head and the sound of my phone not ringing. Part of me wanted to be angry. Another part of me understood too well. Sometimes love isn't a straight line. Sometimes it's a loop, a journey someone has to take alone before they can return. One night, I found myself back on the rooftop, our rooftop, staring at the same skyline where it all began. The city looked endless again, indifferent. I wondered if I'd imagined the whole thing, if Levi had been just a dream I'd taken too many pictures of. Then I heard footsteps behind me. Still taking photos of the sky? My heart stuttered. I turned, and there he was, Levi. The same smile, the same messy hair, but there was something different now, something steadier. "You're back," I said, the words barely a whisper. "I told you I would be." He walked closer, holding something in his hand. A letter, folded neatly, edges worn. "I went home," he said, "and I told them." I froze. "Everything." He nodded. "Everything." I didn't breathe. "How did they take it?" He hesitated. "Not great. My dad didn't talk to me for 2 days. My mom cried. But when I left this morning, she hugged me and said, 'I just want you to be happy.' And for once, I think she meant it." Something broke open inside me then, a mix of relief and pride. "You did it," I said. He smiled. "No, we did." He held out the letter. "This is for you." I opened it slowly. Inside was a photo, one I hadn't taken. It was of the two of us on the road, leaning against his car, the sky pink behind us. We were laughing, carefree, alive. On the back, in his handwriting, were just 3 words. "We made it." He stepped closer, the city wind catching between us again. "I realized something," he said. "That night, on the rooftop, it wasn't the end of something we couldn't name. It was the start of everything we never dared to hope for." I felt tears sting my eyes. "And what now?" "Now?" He smiled. "Now we stop being afraid." He reached out, taking my hand the way he had that first night. Except this time, there was no hesitation, no pretending, just truth. We stood there as the lights of the city blinked below us, 2 souls who'd finally stopped running from themselves. Weeks later, Levi found a new opportunity, not in Chicago, but right here. A teaching assistant position at the university, one that allowed him to stay. We moved into a small apartment together, the kind with peeling paint and a view of the river if you craned your neck just right. It wasn't much, but it was ours. Our days fell into a rhythm. Coffee in the mornings. Work, laughter, the ordinary chaos of living. Sometimes we fought. Sometimes we sat in silence. But even the quiet felt full, like it was holding something sacred. And every night, before turning off the lights, Levi would trace his fingers across the photo taped to our wall, the one from graduation night, where the fireworks blurred behind us. He'd whisper, "That was the night everything made sense," and I'd smile because he was right. Months later, I got my first photography exhibit. I filled the gallery with images from our journey. The rooftops, the coastlines, the diner, the quiet moments of light falling across his face when he thought no one was watching. People came and went, admiring the work, but all I saw was him. Standing at the back, hands in his pockets, smiling like the world had finally come into focus. When the night ended, he walked up to me and said softly, "You showed the world what love looks like." I looked at him and replied, "No, I showed them you." He laughed, shaking his head. "You and your camera, always making me look better than I am." I leaned in close. "You don't need help with that." He kissed me there in front of everyone without hesitation. A quiet rebellion that felt like freedom. The crowd clapped. Some smiled. Some looked away. But we didn't care. Because this time we weren't hiding anymore. Later that night, as we walked home under the same stars that had once watched us stumble into love,